Hey, how's it going, everyone? In this video, we're going to go over the different types of FIRE for retirement, and it's going to be kind of like a classroom presentation type of vibe. All right, so first things first, let's go over what a normal retirement looks like for someone that's not pursuing FIRE, right? They work until they're age 62, and then they retire. And when they retire, they live off of Social Security benefits and from withdrawing from their 401k or from receiving a pension. And when you follow this principle that's traditional, you get to live and enjoy the rest of your life in retirement when you're 65, 69, 74, or 81 years old. And in this next slide, it just goes over the data that we have about the average American. It says right here, according to the Federal Reserve's data, 54% of families hold retirement accounts, which means the other half of the US is not. They're not preparing for retirement. And if you look at the median retirement savings balance broken down into age categories, where do you fall under? Like if you're 55 to 64, the median retirement savings is roughly $185,000. And if you're 65 to 74, then it's roughly $200,000. And if you're younger than 55 and you look over here, you probably have a 401k account. So in 2023, the average 401k account was about $86,000 for the accounts that were under Bank of America. So that's the data that we are working with. And before we move on to the next slide, look at the median Social Security payout every year, depending on which age group you fall under. For the most part, we can go ahead and assume that you're going to get about $18,000 every year in Social Security. For most of us, that's not going to be enough to survive and actually live when you're retired. Which brings us to FIRE, which stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. And in a general rule of thumb, financial independence means that you have enough money saved up without working to cover your living expenses indefinitely. So once financial independence is achieved, you have the freedom to retire early if you choose to, or to pursue other passions and interests without the pressure of needing a job for financial reasons. And it really depends on who you ask. But how I define financial independence is when your investments and savings reach about 30 times your yearly expenses, then you've reached financial independence. So let's say you spend $50,000 in a given year. So once your portfolio becomes $1.5 million, then you can retire early at age 45 or even 50, because think about it, that portfolio will be able to pay for your yearly expenses year after year. Does that make sense? So by saving all of your money very aggressively and investing that money, you get to retire early at age 45 or even 50, which is decades before the traditional timeline, at which point you can go wild in your garden hobby or be a creepy guy that hits on women decades younger than him at the bar, mall, bus stop, wherever they go. There's creepy guys. You can be one of them. So how exactly do you FIRE? Well, it boils down to this. You grind at a job, meaning you work overtime or you go for a career field that's super stressful but pays a lot. And you save as much money as possible and invest those savings until you get a portfolio big enough to stop working. That's it. One sentence, that's how I would describe how you do this. And the call out that I want to make is that for FIRE participants, they abide by this rule, which is the 4% rule, where your portfolio gets so big that when you sell 4% of your assets at the end of the year, that money will be enough to pay for all of your annual expenses and not make too much of a dent for your portfolio to be damaged in any way. It'll just be able to recover and bounce back and keep growing to sustain itself. All right, so this is such a serious topic, so I wanted to throw a joke in here. Why don't FIRE folks play hide and seek? Give it a guess. You give up? Because good luck finding someone who's already retired at age 45. Badum-ts. All right, so hopefully FIRE makes sense to you, because now we're going to go over the different types of FIRE. And if you're still confused, then I blame me. I did a terrible job at explaining, and I will punish myself tonight by eating my dog's kibbles. Which, mind you, if you've ever had kibbles before, it's not exactly the greatest taste in the world. On surface level, yes, they look like Reese's Pieces cereal, but the moment you pop one into your mouth, it's pretty nasty. So to help me explain FIRE, I wanted to use this illustration that portrays the different types of FIRE by net worth. So the bigger your portfolio and assets are, the more to the right you will be. If you have a lot of student loans, credit card debt, and no savings at all, then you're going to be all the way to the left right here. And if you have sweaty nipples, you're probably the shade of orange that you see right here. So the first one is going to be CoastFIRE. Essentially, when you're young, you save and invest as much of your money as possible. And the goal is to build a big enough portfolio in the next 10 years where you can say, hey, I'm CoastFIRE. And instead of a portfolio that looks like $600,000 or even like $3 million, with CoastFIRE, we're talking about something small like $80,000 by age 24. And the reason why this works is because if you have like, I don't know, $150,000 saved by age 30, that portfolio is going to continue to grow over time thanks to the power of compound interest. You don't have to do anything else. You don't have to put any more money into it. You just have to look at it once in a while. So while your portfolio and investments are growing year after year very passively, you will still work at a job to cover your day-to-day expenses. Does this make sense? So CoastFIRE is kind of like retiring, but not really. So in short, CoastFIRE means reaching a point where your early savings will grow on their own to support your retirement. This allows you to take it easier and to focus on living your life without the constant pressure to save more. So you can use all of that income to live life in your 30s and 40s. And I like to give examples to make sure that you're following along. So if you have $150,000 saved and invested by age 30, then that portfolio will bake and cook for you all on its own until you're ready for retirement at age 60. So unlike the other FIRE modalities and strategies where you're completely out of the workforce by age like 40 or 45, with CoastFIRE, you're going to be retiring at the traditional age. And since you won't be putting away money into your investments, the money you earn from your job will cover your expenses and allow you to enjoy life while you're still young. And that's why CoastFIRE really resonates with a lot of Gen Z. And earlier I talked about with CoastFIRE, a lot of people gravitate towards jobs or career fields that are really stressful but pay a lot. So with CoastFIRE, you can continue at your job or even switch to a less stressful field that can still cover the bills. You're going to be living paycheck to paycheck on the surface level, but by doing a job that you love and living a life you enjoy, it makes a lot of sense. Can you imagine spending your entire paycheck to increase the quality of your life while you're still 31 years old or even 34 or 39? That's the whole idea behind CoastFIRE. Now, the next one is called BaristaFIRE. BaristaFIRE has the same idea in mind as CoastFIRE, but instead of trying to retire as fast as possible, they go a little bit slower. And so they save and invest for about 20 to 25 years, and then they retire. So instead of having a portfolio that's like $100,000, BaristaFIRE participants would like to see a portfolio that's at least $400,000 or $500,000 or $600,000. And then once your portfolio reaches that valuation, you would quit your full-time job and then find a part-time job to cover the rest of your expenses. And the whole idea is this: with that $400,000 portfolio, what you're going to do is sell 4% a year to pay for your expenses, and then you're going to find a part-time job to bridge the gap. And in a perfect and ideal world, that part-time job is going to be lower stress and super flexible, like quote unquote working at a coffee shop. From my experience and what I've heard, working as a barista can be chaotic, so it might look like something else, that part-time job that's fun for you. And by doing BaristaFIRE, you're going to have an unconventional retirement at the age of 45 or around 49. And because you only have to work 20 hours a week because that's a part-time job, that gives you so much time back for you to enjoy your life and to have a life outside of work. So BaristaFIRE makes a lot of sense to me. So in essence, BaristaFIRE is about achieving enough financial independence to only need a part-time job to cover your expenses, giving you more flexibility and time to enjoy life. life. Let's say that you accumulate an investment portfolio that's valued at $500,000 by age 42. Now, following the typical FIRE rule of doing a 4% withdrawal, that spits out an annual income of $22,000, and you bridge the gap with a part-time job to cover any remaining expenses. And that part-time job is probably going to yield what? Maybe $20,000, $25,000 a year because you're only working 15 to 20 hours a week. So when I think about Barista FIRE, I think it's a perfect strategy and route for people who want to spend more time with their family or even escape from a management position to just doing a passion job that pays significantly less while removing white-collar job stresses. People think that those six-figure manager jobs are all glory and fun, but it's really not. Managing people is super stressful. Been there, done that. And I want to repeat myself because this is really important. When you look for that part-time job for Barista FIRE, you don't have to brew coffee in a little shop in Portland. You could be a tutor for people studying for their GRE, a grocery store worker, a ski instructor, or run a daycare part-time on the side. Whatever you want to do, that's 15 to 20 hours a week that pays enough to help you bridge the gap for your expenses. You could even live stream on Twitch and show people footage of your nasty looking feet. I'm telling you, there's someone for everyone out here. There's some people that are into nasty looking toenails, and your feet are the perfect candidate. CoastFIRE and Barista FIRE are really unconventional because the whole idea behind FIRE is so that you can retire and not have to be in the workforce or be a participant in the labor market. Moving right along, now we're going to be talking about the more traditional modalities of FIRE. We're going to be referring to the American median household income, which right now we're just going to go ahead and say it's about $75,000 as a guideline. Please remember that number, $75,000. So with that said, the first one is going to be LeanFIRE. The exact same principle is still true for step one. You're going to want to save and invest your money, but aggressively, meaning as much money as you're comfortable with, tossing it all into your portfolio. Meaning you might skip some meals, you might say no thanks to invitations, you might even choose to disregard personal satisfaction and happiness in order to make more money, buying more investments in your portfolio. Because the whole idea behind LeanFIRE is trying to press the fire button as fast as possible. And as the name might suggest, your portfolio valuation when you're ready for FIRE is not going to be the biggest. And unlike Barista or CoastFIRE, when you retire, you retire. You do not have to work. So to make LeanFIRE work, you have to live a frugal and minimalistic lifestyle in order to keep your expenses as low as possible. With LeanFIRE, you probably grow your own vegetables, and you most likely have been wearing the same pair of underwear for 15 years with all the holes in it. LeanFIRE is not just a financial choice or retirement method. It's a lifestyle. So here's a spreadsheet of the math and data behind what LeanFIRE should look like. That $600,000 portfolio should be able to sustain itself, even after you take out a 4% withdrawal at the end of each year, because the historic rate of return for your portfolio or for the market or for stock investments in general has been around 8 to 8.5% year over year, especially with the S&P 500, or if you invest into an index like VU or VTI. So let's say you press the LeanFIRE button, $600,000. At the end of the year, your portfolio would have grown by 8.5%, at which point you would withdraw 4.4%, which is $28,000 to help pay for the bills. After you take out that withdrawal, the portfolio valuation is now going to be $622,000, which is an increase of $22,000 from the baseline. And if you repeat this process and let this cook for an additional 365 days, then it becomes $675,000. And if you take out a 4% withdrawal, that will be $33,000 for you to pay for your annual expenses. And the leftover portfolio valuation, you guessed it, $641,000. And by looking at this, you might think that the withdrawal is really low. And it is, right? It's designed that way on purpose. In relation to the median household income, remember what we talked about, that $75,000? LeanFIRE is having your annual income be a lot less less than that $75,000. So if your withdrawal rate is less than the median household income, that classifies you into the LeanFIRE category. So just to recap, with LeanFIRE, it means retiring early with a smaller amount of savings by keeping your living expenses very low, intentionally. It's about prioritizing financial independence over luxury, comforts, or simple joys in life, allowing you to leave the workforce sooner and live a simpler life, and for you to enjoy that life upon retirement. So LeanFIRE to me is the ultimate expression of delayed gratification. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and go over some stereotypes of LeanFIRE. A person that's going to be adopting this strategy for retirement probably uses the bus or subway instead of having a car. Or if they have a car, they probably don't use it much. And they probably choose to eat in rather than eat out because they don't want to pay for the restaurant prices on the menu. And they probably have very inexpensive or frugal hobbies that are free, such as reading or listening to music. And on the surface level, people will commonly confuse you for being poor because of your lifestyle choices. And more likely than not, you probably live in a low cost of living area in the Midwest or in the South. And a call out that I want to make is that your LeanFIRE portfolio valuation, it does not have to be $500,000 or $600,000 because it really depends on where you live and the cost of living. So on that note of the Midwest and the South, you could still pursue LeanFIRE in New York City or Seattle or San Francisco. It's just instead of your portfolio being $500,000, it's going to be a lot higher. Perhaps it's going to be something like $900,000 to reflect the cost of living differences. But the key here is that regardless if you're in the South or in New York City, the mindset and philosophy is still going to be the same. Frugality is the name of the game. Now, the next FIRE method is the Chubby FIRE. Now, what makes Chubby FIRE different from LeanFIRE is that it's about finding a balance between enjoying a higher standard of living and achieving financial independence, allowing you to retire early without, that's the key word here, without compromising on the quality of life that you want to live. And unlike LeanFIRE folks, you don't use reusable toilet paper to save money. Like LeanFIRE folks are the ones to use a paper towel to wipe their butt and then put it into the washer so that they can use that paper towel again. Like, that's pretty gross. Chubby FIRE people just buy a fresh stack of TP whenever they need it, but everything else pretty much looks the same. You work hard, you invest your money, you grow a portfolio big enough until you can retire and stop working indefinitely. And you sell about 4% of your portfolio every single year in order to fund your expenses. Or if you do dividend investing, you want a dividend yield of at least 4%. Now let's look at the numbers and data behind what a Chubby FIRE retirement would look like. You would need a much bigger portfolio in order to fund your lifestyle and comforts in comparison to LeanFIRE. So the minimum portfolio valuation we are talking about here is going to be around $1.5 million. But realistically, the portfolio valuations can range from about $1 million all the way up to $5 million. And I like to think of Chubby FIRE as the normal or traditional FIRE method, the standard. And that's because when you look at the annual withdrawal rate after that 4% sell-off, it's about in line with the US median household income. So hypothetically, let's go ahead and say you press the Chubby FIRE button once your portfolio reaches $1.5 million. If you sell 4.4% of your portfolio at the end of 365 days of pressing that button, then the withdrawal is going to be $71,000. And your portfolio valuation afterwards is going to be $1.555 million. And then if you let this cook for 365 days, it should realistically turn into $1.6 million. And once you take a 4.4% withdrawal from this number, then your annual income is going to be $84,000, rinse and repeat. So when I think about Chubby FIRE, life should be as usual in retirement. You don't need to make any crazy changes to penny pinch or do anything crazy. You can just live your life normally without having to wake up early to go to work. Well, I guess maybe you'll have an increased motivation and focus on paying off the mortgage, but other than that, retirement should be smooth sailing for Chubby FIRE. You're not living the lifestyle of the rich and the famous, but you would be a good example of the millionaire next door, which, by the way, if you have not read this book yet, phenomenal read. You'll finish reading it within 2 to 3 hours. It's a quick one. Statistically, most of us watching this video will be aiming for a Chubby FIRE. Now, the last FIRE method is FatFIRE. FatFIRE. And just like LeanFIRE and ChubbyFIRE, the exact same principles are still true. But the way I like to think of FatFIRE is ChubbyFIRE on steroids. FatFIRE is for those who want to retire early while maintaining a very, very comfortable lifestyle or even luxurious life. You are shooting for FatFIRE if you never want to worry about money in retirement or question how much something you want even costs. You just say, I'll just put it on my card. If you see a pair of shoes that you want on eBay, no hesitation, you'll pay more than what the seller wants. If he wants $80, you won't hesitate to just throw 110 items so that you can secure it. And when Santa's little helpers ask for donations around Christmas time outside of the grocery stores, you won't hesitate dropping a single Benjamin Franklin bill into their bucket. Because with FatFIRE, you have more money than you know what to do with. So let's look at the FatFIRE math and numbers. So let's say that you press the FatFIRE button once your portfolio reaches $15 million. And when you sell 4% of your portfolio to pay for the bills, that income is going to be $600,000. And with FatFIRE, you don't have to wait until the end of the year to do that sell-off of 4%. You could just take that immediate cut right away. So if you take your cut of 4% right at the beginning of retirement on that $15 million portfolio, at the end of the year, it's going to be worth $15.7 million. And for year two, $16.3 million. So with FatFIRE, the annual withdrawal, that 4% that you're going to see each year, is going to be roughly $150,000 to $500,000 a year. And when I think about someone who's pursuing FatFIRE, they probably have a personal chef at home, a personal trainer. They probably put their kids through private school because they don't trust the public school system. They take multiple vacations a quarter. I'm not talking about your once a summer vacation to the beach. I'm talking about these guys will wake up randomly on a Saturday morning and say, hey, I want to go to Italy. And they'll just book first class to Italy the next day. So who are the people that are able to pursue the FatFIRE lifestyle and retirement strategy? These tend to be people that got lucky in the startup world, or they're a doctor, or they're a big law attorney, or they're a hedge fund manager. It's somebody that makes a ton of cash every single year. So the portfolio valuations are going to be around 5 million all the way up to like 20 million plus when they press the FatFIRE button. And despite what you think, being overweight is optional. You could still be a skinny person and pursue FatFIRE. So there you have it, folks, the different types of FIRE. I think it's important that the FIRE method and movement has these different categories because someone pursuing LeanFIRE will have an entirely different mindset and philosophy than someone else that's pursuing FatFIRE. So by having these genres, it allows like-minded people to share advice, wisdom, or feedback from that respective perspective. Ooh, that's a nice phrase. Respective perspective. With that said, which strategy do you resonate with the most? Or is it a combination? Let me know because I'm curious, and in my next upload, I'm going to be talking about which path that I'm personally choosing and why. And until that video, stay safe and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.